calling you a radical. This is a real important historic video. So I'm going to give you some background. So the dumb money Reddit trades, and just remember the Gamestop. All my three of my young daughters have all called. What's this going on? You know, they know what I did for a living. They're like, wow, their husband, they're like, oh, you better call my dad. So listen, I was a derivative arbitrage specialist all through the 90s. I taught the derivatives class in that school. #1 MBA program in the United States. #1 algebra. I taught it. Helping Kyle Madsen when Dr. Cooley died. So the #1 school of business in the United States. Not now. But anyway, this is important. So I see they're ganging up on Nokia to send it to the moon now. Now just remember, when you send these stocks way up, you're not hurting oligarchs, you're making those board of directors, especially GameStop. GameStop was done. You know how many people are just sitting back there and saying, thank you, God, they're rich now? You don't think they unloaded? And so this is important because in 2000, Dr. Cooley had died. I taught the derivative arb class in there, how to trade options, how to hedge portfolio, calls, puts, blah, blah, how to short squeeze, blah, blah, in the MBA program. I taught it here. So when 9/11 happened, I just come home from Wall Street, and I was running my plastics, blah, 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 blah. There were, right there, there's a famous interview that was done right here by the statue, by KSL, and it was the Saudi. He was the contingent lead of the Saudi students. He did the interview right there. I stood right by him while he did the interview. So he said, well, what are you guys going to do? He says, we're going to leave. We're going to fly out of the country. And they're like, well, how are you going to leave the country? There's no flights. Of course, he already knew. So when I got up here, the FBI had already had this lab sealed off. They had up there sealed off. And I got up here just shortly after it happened. And I'm like, what the hell? Sandy, who's the secretary, who worked there, the finance, Bruce Handley's secretary, she says, Kevin, they're coming in there seizing hard drives. And I said, what the fuck? Well, of course, the Saudi kids worked in all the labs. So I remember Kyle Madsen came to me, and I started digging in. And I'm the first guy that identified that they had bought puts on the airline sector. I'm the guy. I'm the guy that found it. I'm the guy that was going, I was going to everywhere. I was on chat rooms. My handle back in those days was good earnings only, and I spelled only wrong like they spelled it in PB where I grew up. Only street, no yes. So I'm posting it everywhere, blah, 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 blah. I remember, this is important for you guys. So be careful with these trades. But anyway, I remember Kyle telling me, standing right here one day, he says, Kevin, you think maybe you taught these guys how to buy puts on the airlines? Because I think some of them were in your class. So they detained 5 students off this campus. I don't know whatever happened to them. The Saudi students never come back to Weber State for years, but we know the so-called 9/11 terrorists came through the state. They were in Wendover. They routed through San Diego. I remember I was out there twice, different times, playing blackjack in that summer. And that summer, and they were there. There was a group of them there. You can go out there and interview. There was a lot of people that wanted the surveillance tape out there, and I got in an argument playing blackjack with a bunch of them, and they were pricks. I'm like, I remember telling Richie, who's passed away of leukemia now, I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I don't know, but they've been here a while, and they got a lot of fucking money, and they're scamming. Well, we know they routed through and stayed in those little sleazy hotels, back roads all the way to Laura, Maryland, under the shadow. So anyway, but my point is this. So Nokia, let's get back to Nokia. You're on Nokia now. I made a tremendous amount of money not that long ago, before I got cancer. You can watch my videos in here in my classroom. And when I was a student professor, I was just saving the program, helping them out. They screwed me, by the way. They could have paid for my cancer. But anyway, I turned $3,000 into almost $900,000 in just a few months. Doing similar to what you're doing, but I was playing the options market. So Nokia was my big one. I'm like, no, because Palm Pilot, I'd come through that dynamic, which was US Robotics, which Novell, WordPerfect, it was all here. It was here. I was going to school and teaching here when the whole technology boom here. I mean, we lived it, we breathed it, we were it David O. McKay's grandson, Alan Ashton, is the guy who invented the operating systems. I mean, and this school business was the #1 in the fucking country, and this happening. So, the whole Apple dynamic, Steve Jobs, I shook his hand right over there. His first job he ever had, Steve Jobs, he worked for the guy who started Atari, you know, he went to school here. He's from Utah. He said I used to make Steve Jobs work nights because he was such a prick. But anyway, the whole thing. So my point is this. Not that long ago, you can look them up, I had people buying the derivative on Apple on the way up. And I'm like, short Nokia. Nokia started out as a timber company. And I used to say in my videos, they're going to go back to being a timber. Unless they merge with Palm, all these BlackBerry and all these guys, I'm like, they got to get together. Apple's going to tear them to pieces. This is when Apple was trading at $90, I remember. I used to manage a kid's portfolio here on Heritage Wealth. And I said, just go in. Buy $2 million. He had $10 million he inherited. I says, let's take $2 million and just buy Apple. Forget it. Just buy Apple. Forget it. Oh, no. I says, I'm telling you, Nokia is fucking up. You know, they're going to get they're going to get annihilated. They're going to go back to being a timber company. And so anyway, he wouldn't, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I was up to. And then boom, I got cancer in 2011. You know, I had everybody going in all that Tesla stock. So my point is this, you can do this. And I hear what's going on. And if you're, following the herd, whatever. But remember this, there's other ways you can do this. It's the options market, and you can look up, I have videos I did in there. I used to do a lecture on turning small money into large money. You don't have to risk it. This is too risky. And I'll tell you why. If you're buying the stock, say it rallies and you're getting in at 300 or 400, you can go play blackjack and double down. But here's the point. You're risking the whole thing. Because when this thing, but if you just dive in with the options market, you can play these things. There's options on all these stocks, and there's even weekly ones. You can play with small money. And if you get burned, you will lose a little bit of one. Ooh, so what? So I'm just trying to get you, and I wish I would have never gave up I love finance. I love trading. I loved it. But, cancer had me, and I'm the environmentalist, and leukemia changed my whole world. I got sick, and I went into bone marrow transplant 11. All these professors, and they've gone to shit. They blackball. This is the worst school business in the United States, ranked 500. Don't go see the Dalai Lama when it was the #1. So here's my point on all this. These are great stories that need to be told. The legendary great finance professor, I have his last letter of recommendation. It's in the Stewart Library. He, what a fucking brilliant dude. I was like his protege. His office was right there. All these guys have died. I call it the Wattis curse, the nuclear crime. But anyway, that's my point. My daughters, they all know. They lived it. They watched how I used to roll, and it's an up and down crazy. But Nokia. I called that one too. I called a lot of finance things to the T. By the way, remember I did that great video sitting on the bench right there on March 12th, 2011, sliding back and forth on each president. And I'd go to the left, to the right, to the left, right, and I was moving further and further right. And then I got to Obama, and I fell off. Well, I got to Trump, and I fell in a fucking right-wing hole. And then remember those? I did them like this. Every single president, and I used their software, and then I got, further right, and I fell over with Obama in 2012. And so there's the environmental economics professor, my old. So anyway, that's the point. So be careful with it. I've done this, just did this video because I was just asked to. 90% of my videos I was asked to. So I love it, Nokia, those fucking losers. Apple, Steve Jobs just fucking, he died of cancer. I'll tell you the irony of all this. Kyle died of lung cancer. He was the University of Syracuse guy, that toxic. So did his wife. Dr. Cooley died of mad cow. I can go on and on. Both Davises, all this elite school, they're all dead. It's not elite school anymore. It was. And so when I got my stomach ache, I was due to speak at Zuccotti. It was always the anti-nuclear activist, and I call it the Wattis curse. They kept misdiagnosing, you know, there's nothing wrong with you, send me home, blah, blah, blah. And you remember how healthy I was, and a lot of people followed my finance videos. They got rich. I was making a fortune. I mean, I was just killing it in those days, doing what you guys are doing. I mean, I had silver shorted in the triple leverage right at 47. I had gold shorted at 1900. I fucking had the derivative on fucking Apple up. I mean, I was just fucking on fire. And the stomach ache. When I was in the emergency room for the third time trying to figure out this incredible pain, these doctors misdiagnosing me, the interview that I was watching was Isaacson, who wrote the book on Steve Jobs. And I'll tell you, it gets more irony. I'm in the bone marrow transplant center dying. I went in on 11/11/11. One of my doctors was one of Steve Jobs' doctors. He had teams. He made it with pancreatic cancer for 6 years. Now remember, Hewlett-Packard, he used to play in their garage. And his wearing his outfit, that wasn't about him just not, he was paranoid about cancer his whole life. You know, the soap dynamic, those stories on Jobs are incredible. And he knew, you know, and I says, there's a letter that got circulated out there that Steve Jobs wrote that I'm an asshole and I couldn't pay for my own cancer. I couldn't pay for somebody if I cancer. I said, do you think that letter's real when I was in the bone marrow? Well, this doctor was one of his. He was one of his doctors at the end. He says, yeah, I think he wrote it. So I'll tell you the greatest story about Steve Jobs. I met him right there. I shook his hand right there. Had these giant Macs here. We were the guru university in those days on IT. You know, in the early days, I mean, Utah was the place right here in Weber County. You know, Novell, we're perfect. Omega, you know, all of it. U.S. Robotics, I won't stop there. Palm Pilot, all of it. I mean, I grew up in it. I made a fortune at it, and then, but cancer hit me. Steve Jobs, you know, his sister, the famous writer, who, you know, they're both adopted, Reed College. Steve Jobs, his sister decides she's going to track down the biological father. You know, after him and the sister had met later in life as adults, she goes and finds him. I believe in Sacramento. He had an Italian restaurant. And she meets him. They have dinner. They visit. She come back to tell Steve she was talking to him, and he said to her, well, you know, I used to be the famous restaurant in the valley right there in Sunnyvale. And he says, anybody came in my restaurant. He says, Steve Jobs used to come in every Friday and sit for hours and just visit with me and blah, blah, blah. And her eyes went. So she went home and she says, told Steve this story. And he was like, wow, I remember that dude. Well, that's sure. What a fucking story. And he says, do you want to go? Fuck no, I don't want to meet that dick. And then, of course, Steve Jobs done it to his own daughter. But what a story. So my point is, I did exactly what you're doing for a living, and I'm all for you. Exciting. You know, I love finance. You know, the dumb money trade. It is what it is, right? You know, but don't get caught. You know, don't be diving in. Don't, you know, Bitcoin, whatever. I'm a fundamentalist. I don't like technical analysis, and I was deadly for years, but I'm poor now. I've been broke for a long time because I got cancer, deadly cancer, deadly. And I'm all in as the environmentalist. I was clear back then. I was always the environmentalist, and you know. But my daughter's called. Everybody's wanting me to do a video about this. I love it, Nokia. Those fucking idiots let fucking Apple just eat their fucking lunch. Fools, arrogant fucking management. So you're making. Can you imagine being the old board of directors sitting on fucking hundreds of thousands of dead shares of, you know, that fucking Gamestop, and then just waking up and go, I'm fucking rich. I'm a fucking gazette. I mean, these guys are making literally hundreds of millions of dollars off you. And, you know, they're like, thank you. So be careful with it. I get it, you know. Everybody wants to gamble. You can't gamble anything. And like I said, I used to love those days. I started trading futures in the cattle futures pits when I was 14 years old in cash in Ogden, Utah. I saw guys carrying suitcases $100 bill. I mean, that's what it was in those days. I worked on the CBOE floor. I taught the derivatives arbitrage. I mean, I'm a walking, talking encyclopedia on it, but something happened on the way to that place, cancer. And just remember this: your health is your wealth. Take care of your health while you're trading. You know, pay your tax liabilities down. Make sure you handle your debt structure. If you're making a bunch of money, use this money. It's like playing blackjack. You know, play on the house's money. If you got some money, play on the house's money. Take your money that you borrowed or you use on a house and pay your debts off, and you'll be happy. I'm serious, you know. And so, just wanted to put this up. I want these stories to be told. They're that important. I'm not getting any younger. And anyway, so I support all you guys. And by the way, I knew Aaron Swartz personally. My days in New York. He is the activist. Reddit sure the fuck don't get it. I think it's irony. There's a thread. Any folks don't give a... I was in the courtroom in Brooklyn with Aaron Swartz. This day I came out of the hospital. That was January 11th, January 11th, 2013. That's what the Million Mass March, which I'm the guy that started it here. So, wanted to get this up. It's important historic stuff. Think everybody supported the historic work, you know. My cancer bill was $1.8 million. They could have paid for it. They didn't. Whatever. I'm happy to be alive. I'm really happy to be alive. I've lived in poverty for 10 years, but that's okay. I'm fine with it. You know, I've got a lot of good work done. A lot of good work. So, a lot of historic work. My place in time, right? You know, I did a BIS when I was young here. I was a 15-year-old student at this university. 15. On an art scholarship. And I was one of the first BIS I chose because there was a legendary... I was always fascinated with quantum physics. And so I did, you know, my biology with Dr. Winters. I did my art, because I was always the artist, with Doyle Strong and Arthur Adelman and Jane Catlin and those guys. And then, but the number one professor in the country is my finance. I have the last article she ever wrote. The legendary finance professor, Clyde Cooley, who died tragically of mad cow. Those fuckers don't even know his name. They're clowns. So the diverse mind, whatever, and that's what trading is in the markets. It's very dynamic, isn't it? Very exciting, and I'm all for it, you know. But be careful with it. Be careful. And, you know, like I said, I'm not a big fan of buying long stocks in big ways. Never was. Use small money. And I don't believe in 401k bullshit. That's a fucking con game. Use your small money. Keep your debt paid down. Keep your tax liability. Make sure it's all paid. And take the small money. If you think you're going to get a ride in a stock, play the options out of the money. And, you know, the option market, you lose it, but you're only playing a tiny, small amount of money. So, you know, don't dive in these things. When they're lower and you make the ride, you know, it's crazy. But it's the world we live in, right? Just like baseball. The stock market and culture mirrors baseball. Remember when Cash pulled Blake out of the game on a 2-hitter? You think Tommy Lasorda would have done that? They would have won the race, but your technical analysis, I'm not a fan of it. I don't believe in it. I think it's fucking bullshit. But, you know, fundamentally, I'm deadly. You know, I knew Apple was going to go to the fucking moon. I knew Tesla was. Play back the tape. I had 30,000 shares of Tesla when I got sick. 30 fucking thousand. Play back the... I made millionaires all over the internet. Fucking millionaires all over. Did they ever kick me back any? Fuck no. I had to sell it to get it. I threw down my stock portfolio. I remember that day. Don't play me like I'm fucking poor. I got money. I went all in Tesla. I knew it. You know, I had people buying Apple. Play back when I used to split the Apple into pieces before Apple split. But people, you know, they won't follow me. I'm too fucking good at what I do. But I'm all about the environment anyway. Because when Fukushima happened, it changed everything to me. Nothing else matters. So, do the right thing with your money when you make a bunch too. You know, so, and I was asked to do this video. I stood right here. Fukushima. It's because nothing else matters. Stand tuned.